Hi everybody. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the production function again. We're going to do some practice. Some of this is also learning as we're going to go through these, because normally in class we actually would do a simulation of this. If we get a chance to in the spring, or if you are taking this class at another time, then we'll certainly be able to do the simulation as well. Production is converting inputs and output. In this data set, we examine the relationship between those two. The inputs here consist of machinery, which costs 10, and workers, which consists of $15 per worker. Each output, called a grebe, generates $3 per grebe revenue. Now, this machinery is fixed, right? That's an important thing to observe about this. It's not going to change, but the workers, we would say, are variable. They're variable. Now, the first question says complete the section marked from MPL to TC. So we're going to go from here over to here. Okay, and in fact, it tells you if you look close and squint a little bit, and I know that my eyes are getting old, so we'll see here. It actually gives you how to calculate these. So marginal product of labor is the change in total product divided by the change in the quantity of labor. So we're not going to have one for the 0th unit, and we did that in the previous lecture. But for this one, right, 0 to 5, well, the change in total product is 5, and the change in workers is 1, so 5 over 1. And then 5 to 12, well, the change there is 7, and 1 to 2, the change is 1, so 7 over 1. 12 to 18, 6 over 1, it's just 6. And so we'll go on here. And then notice we do get to some negative values, just like we did in the lecture. Okay, now it says TFC. Now TFC is an abbreviation we haven't seen before, but it just means total, right? And then F is fixed cost, total fixed cost. And this one next to it means variable cost. So TVC. So set above, well, what's the total cost of the fixed cost? $10. So even if you aren't producing any, if you don't have any workers, you still have to pay for that machine, which was $10. Now, what if you have one worker? How much does the machine cost? $10. How much does it cost if you have two? $10. Notice the word fixed. It means no matter what, it's going to stay the same. Now the next one, there's this sigma sign. That means sum. So the sum of the labor cost. And that's the variable cost, right? And we already have up here that it's $15 per worker. But if you have 0 workers, then there's no variable cost. But then if you have your first worker, well, it's 15. What about 2 workers? How much do they cost? 30. 3 would cost 45. 4 would cost 60. 75, 90, 105, and 120. So each time we're just adding a worker, and it's like, well, it costs $15 more in our little grebe shop or whatever. Now, total cost, TC, that's just adding up the fixed and the variable, okay? So we get 10, 25, 40, 55, 70, 85, 100, 115, and 130. Now, one thing to notice, right? What's the change in total cost every single time? Well, it's the amount of the change in the variable cost, and that's going to be important later on. But we're going to stop here. We're going to fill out the rest of this later, so don't lose your sheet of paper. What happened to MPL as QL increased? Did it demonstrate diminishing marginal returns? Okay, so in this one, we have to think about, diminishing marginal returns. That's the idea of diminishing marginal product. And does it do that? Well, it increases, right? As the quantity increases, we see it goes from 5 to 7, and then it starts to go back down again. So initially increases from quantity of labor, we'll say 0 to 2, 0 to 2, then diminished from quantity of labor 2 to 8. And in fact, it goes negative. And that would still be diminishing. It's still getting smaller, right? It's just getting negative at that point. Okay, now we're going to do some more marginal product practice. I drew a line here to hopefully say these are different problems, right? Marginal product here, again, we don't have that one. The change, 10, 15, 20. All right, see, we're really getting a lot of marginal product at first, and then it's going to diminish again. 10, 5, 0 marginal product of that seventh worker, and -5. Now, I'm gonna say this again. It has nothing to do with the quality of the worker. It has everything to do with increasing specialization at first. You know, that's where they get those gains, and then you get basically diminishing marginal returns because of the fixed inputs, right? So we've done that. With which worker do diminishing marginal returns result? Where do they start? Well, they don't start with the third worker. They start with the fourth, because that's the first one where it starts to get smaller. Some students will say this eighth worker. That's not correct. The diminishing actually starts when NP starts to go back down again. And we'd say because they have some fixed inputs. Again, if we had you know a variable amounts of machinery that the ice cream shop could do all the time, well, then you wouldn't see this happen. But you know, if you have some fixed inputs, then that's what happens, right? With which worker do negative marginal returns result? Well, that's the eighth worker, right? That's the eighth one, which describes the slope of the TP function for QL2 to QL7. So QL2 to QL7, it would be decreasing, but still a positive value, right? And the reason that we can actually tell the slope of the TP function, right? If you didn't have all of this, it would be a little bit harder, but you could just look at this and see, well, from this worker to this worker, what is it? Well, they're all positive and they're decreasing. We'd say B. All right, hopefully this helps you. See you next time.